Hello and welcome into Looking Up with Laird here on Sorare TV, episode 10. Gentlemen, we might start getting paid soon. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined as always by Sam, Tighe, and Harry Trades. Today to add 4 more names to our Looking Up with Laird Sorare data watch list. I know we are the longest running show in Sorare TV history, gentlemen. Now that we have hit double digits, it's a big day. Before we jump into our 4 names, is Boubacar Kamara one of them?
It was close.
Get Harry to do it. Go on, do it.
No, I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't.
He clearly felt disrespected at his exclusion last week. Was that last week? Yeah. I think it was. Yeah. And so we'll try to make up for it. Although I believe we did see a decisive from one of the 4 from last week. Only because Harry immediately told us as soon as it happened. But did he score a goal or was it an assist? I can't remember.
I think he got a goal, yeah.
Harry does this, by the way, guys, when he players and then in the chat on Discord, as soon as any of them do anything, he immediately informs us. To be fair, he does it when my players
let's not pretend that you guys don't do it as well. I might do it excessively, but no, you're right.
But you're more in tune with my picks than I am. Sometimes back in the Callum O'Hare days, you were like, Callum O'Hare assist. And I was like, I didn't even know he was playing.
Yeah. I think it's almost like Harry automatically sets up like decisive notifications on anybody that we add to our list so that as soon as it happens, he can spread it. And in fairness, it would be nobody would fault him for like going to Twitter and announcing it to everybody. But instead, he just shares it with us. Hey, guys, we got another one.
Yeah, right. Jordan Bayer this weekend, lads. You know, I did mention. I think did we mention him two months ago? Somebody in my WhatsApp chat was like, "Why is Jordan Bayer only like 0.3 for a rate?" I was like, "I've been trying to tell you this 2 months ago, but it's like I don't know what's not going through, but whatever."
You got somehow the looking up pump hadn't occurred yet on young Mr. Bayer, but we'll get there. Yeah. But anyway, we've got 4 more names to add to the list this week. As a reminder to anyone who does not follow, we have a watch list on Sorare Data called Looking Up with Laird on Sorare TV that tracks all the guys that we add to the list each week. If you're new to the show, we Sam and Harry each pick 2 players every week to add. It's just players that we think will be good in the coming weeks. It's not necessarily this next game week he's going to be great. It happens enough that Harry gets to tell us exactly when it happens right away. But anyway, we have this list. You can track in the notes to see exactly when everybody was added. And then, everything here looks, look at us. Got a little, the pump is happening. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I bet it's an ETH thing. Oh, no, we're flying. All right, here we go. Definitely, definitely not that. So anyway, we've got 4 more names. Mr. Trades, since you will be the one, whoever you name now is going to get a goal this weekend. Who are we adding to the list? Unless it's a goalie, then, man, would that be quite a story.
Oh, no, for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah, we don't want own goals. No, to be fair, my theme this week was like transfer based, so I don't think any of these players will be playing this weekend. One might be in a squad of some sort, but the first one I'm going to talk about and mention is Haakon E10, who's just recently moved to Brøndby from AZ Alkmaar. 22 years old, under 23 until 2024. A player that kind of, we were speaking before we went live, well, not live, but started recording that, he kind of like popped off a little bit for AZ during the sort of Jesper Karlsson, when he wasn't playing basically over the last couple of months. Karlsson's now back. They've just signed Jordi Mihalovic, AZ now. So it doesn't look like the attacking midfielder that is E10 has many plans at AZ. And as Sora moved to Brøndby, who, just looking at the league table, they're actually struggling, to be fair. They're 10th in the league out of 12. The league restarts in February, or on February 19th to be specific. But a player that, can take set pieces, has taken set pieces, has scored pretty well for AZ. AA-wise, can get decisive as well. And, going to a league, like the Danish league, you'd hope in a weird way, not in a weird way, in an obvious way, it's a bit of a step back, which is not a good thing to see for like a 22-year-old player that, if you look at him on YouTube, it's like, oh, why Manchester United should sign Haakon E10. the sort of like wonder kid situation. It's not like I don't love the fact that he's like taking a step back, but sometimes that's needed for a young player to go and play some regular football. Sure. Obviously, like Bromby are struggling. They need some reinforcements. They're going to need goals, assists, and etc. And I think he can bring it for them. They do have a few other like sort of big European players, but I think a Daniel Was actually still plays for him right now, and he's like the set piece taker. I think he's like the main man right now for them. So it's a gamble whether you think Evian's going to come in and take over all the set pieces and stuff, but he has that kind of capability to do so. And yeah, like I said, I think he has the right sort of characteristics I would sort of look at for like a nice under 23 midfielder that could have some really big peaks in a league like that. Like I said, taking a step back somewhat, but if he's playing, that's all we want from Sorare's perspective. They're covered. What more can you really ask for? You'd rather him play every game for Bromby than sit on the bench for AZ and not play a game, right? Utility wise. So yeah, this is my first pick. What do you guys think?
I think well, I remember back when he had that run when Carlson was out at the beginning of the season, and it was like, oh man, this guy can like really play. And then Carlson came back, and it was like, surely they'll find a spot for him, and they didn't. And it was kind of like, oh, all right, like it just looked like he was a good enough player to keep playing, but like Carlson's obviously better, and so they went with Carlson. I think there was also some optimism for those that have had Evian that Carlson was going to leave. And then when the transfer window closed, it was like, okay, I guess he's going to have to figure out something else. But that's kind of like why you see that price spike. And frankly, if that price spike was because of the scores that he had for AZ, and he's moving to a league where like theoretically he should score just as well, if not better, because he's going to have like
hope so
going back to that consistent playing time. Like the price obviously hasn't caught up yet. And I think the only hesitation that comes with it is just different league. That means they're not necessarily always playing at the same time as like other players you might have. The Danish league is covered, but not licensed. So we don't have like all the Danish league players. And so it's just one of those, from a price perspective, he becomes one of these players that like kind of gets forgotten. And I had this conversation with Andy Black on Sorare Andrews a while ago about Gabriel at Arsenal, that like when he went to Arsenal, it's just one of those weird things that the guys stop getting minted. And so it's like, oh, the price should go up because like the supply is now set. But it actually, like, because they're not in the auctions, people just kind of forget about them. And but they also kind of become like differentials because not everybody's playing him. And so Evian's kind of like an interesting one that, again, like we've seen some pretty like good scores out of him. And like some really good AA scores that if he does get a decisive, and it's one of those that like you assume if you go to a lesser league, more decisives come, at least for an attacking player. And so a goal, now all of a sudden you get 75, 80 points instead of just the 62 that he might get elsewhere. So that's a fun one. I like the move.
Has he gone on loan, Harry, or is it permanent?
Good question. I think it's permanent, mate. Let me check. I was just looking at his... so far. I mean, it is contract until 2027.
So this is another layer to this is the, unless they license the Danish league in full next year or they pick up Brøndby, this is an XP differentiator in the mold of Zenit this season, isn't it? Because he'll sustain whatever he's got this season into next season. Unless they license him again, which you never really know. But it's kind of like the trick I'm using with some of my, I've got Wilmar Barrios, a few of the Dynamo Moscow players, Victor Klassen as well is the same thing. And actually, what I've really taken from this is, I really had thought that the Danish league is returning in like May or something, and I need Victor Klassen back really soon. And I think I got them mixed up with Norway, who are in about May, aren't they? Because Rosenborg aren't back for ages and ages and ages. So that's great news. Cheers, Harry.
No, you're welcome. No, I think it's an interesting one. I don't know. I can't see how he doesn't do well personally. But the only issue I have is like he's not going to a team that's like flying top of the league, if that makes sense. Like I don't know if they're gonna score. You know what I'm saying? AZ score goals, and that equals more decisive, capabilities, right? If your team's struggling, I know he's been brought in to, enhance that. I just, that's the only sort of downside for me. I'm a bit like, if they still continue to struggle, then obviously he's not going to get those DAs that you kind of want him to. But that's the beauty of Sorare and speculating and all that sort of jazz, isn't it?
Look at Laird shopping for super rares there. Like, ooh, interesting.
To be honest, I just happened to notice that there was one, and
there is one, yeah.
But and then you get that little like peek, like, oh, this is an Pavel had one. This is just how
I think Hendo actually, yeah, Hendo traded for the Pavel one. To be fair, he took, I think it was Morioka. Yeah, that's it. Botman.
Oh, that's a fun Morioka too.
Whoa!
I know.
That's one of the just like the most interesting trades I've ever seen.
So also, and this Morioka card is one of these like I don't think it's an error card, but if you notice, he's wearing an Anderlecht shirt.
Yeah,
despite not playing for them in the card, like the
the card, yeah,
yeah. So there are two of those on the platform. So that's like an OG card.
Yeah.
So it just proves how long you've been on the platform that that you have that. That's a fun trade, though. You're right. That's very
it is
random.
Yeah,
I remember when Botman was like the
guy, wasn't he?
To have.
Yeah.
And by the way, he still absolutely smashes. He's just not been minted in a while, Laird.
Yeah, he comes back to.
I mean, he's not been minted for a while, so like everyone's forgotten about him. But like my friend Pet has him, and he is like an absolute demon.
Yeah, he scores well. He doesn't score like incredibly well, but he scores consistently well. He's a decent super rare to have. I think. I don't think he's going to win you many divisions scoring a high of 68. You know what I'm saying? That's the issue. But he's nice and green. I can't fault the consistency.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Sven Botman. I like that call, Harry. Mr. Trades, over to you.
No, over to me. You can't have him go twice.
I can't go twice, Laird.
Oh, is that what I said? Sorry.
I'll take it. Give me the microphone. Right, so I'm going to go over to MLS. Definitely not going to be the first time I do this in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, obviously with it all kicking off soon. I'm going to go for Christian Espinoza of the San Jose Earthquakes. So we are 5 weeks, just over a month away from MLS. And the market certainly reflects that in most cases. As is tradition, obviously, just ahead of the big kickoff in America, the prices start to surge. But I haven't necessarily noticed this with Espinoza. His limited hasn't really moved over the course of the last month in a way that a lot of the very premium playmakers are starting to move. And I know it's a slightly different scenario, but like I also have I have an Espinoza and I have a João Paulo from Seattle. His price has tripled. Sorry, is triple Espinoza's in limited, and his price has doubled over the last month. He hasn't played a game for a year. I know he's awesome, but like Espinoza is really flying under the radar here, despite some really good scores, and I'm not 100% sure why. His rare has moved a bit. The limited is pretty flat-lined. So it just kind of confuses me a bit. And when you combine that with, elsewhere on Sorare TV, we've got our resident MLS experts, Trippin B and Draft Kicks, talking about San Jose's very soft opening schedule.
Yes.
They highlighted San Jose as a team to get on board with nice and early for the MLS kickoff. And their first 6 games are Atalanta, Vancouver, Colorado, St. Louis, Toronto and Houston. Is that right? Yeah. So you have to go to game 7 to get to the Red Bulls to encounter a team that made the playoffs last season. Now, I know obviously every season is different and things like that, but 6 opening games against non-playoff teams. It's not like it's hard to get into the playoffs. There's 14 of them. This is very soft. So I'm kind of inviting everybody to take a look at San Jose and take a look maybe more at the attack than the defense, because they're a bit carnage, aren't they, really, ultimately? And maybe you prefer... actually, I'm not familiar with... Is it Ebobisi? The striker? Yeah. Maybe you prefer him. Maybe you prefer, Jamero Montero. I like Christian Espinoza. But these guys seem low in value compared to some of the others here.
Espinoza definitely has a sizable role on set pieces.
Takes a mean penalty, doesn't he? Wow.
The other thing to notice is that 4 of their first 5 matches are at home too, which obviously is not great later in the season whenever they have to make up for it. But if you don't need to look that far ahead, if you're perfectly content. No, I think Espinoza has long been one of those like really undervalued, overlooked MLS players that just like churns points. And yeah, Montero is one that Andy, I think, bought like a ton of. And then Espinoza started to get a bigger piece of the set pieces, and Montero's scores kind of took a little hit because of that. And I feel like the discussion on set pieces has always been around Sorare, but like more and more people now are really emphasizing it. And theoretically that should help Espinoza because he's on set pieces for San Jose, a team that like does have good attacking pieces. I agree with you. Like defensively, they're probably not a team to look at. In fact, they may switch goalies too. So this just fits like perfectly into the type of player that I think people need to focus on. And then I know there are some people who like to look at home away splits, particularly in MLS. But like if you notice, like Espinoza's L40 overall is 52, but it's 58 at home, and for the first 5 are at home. So it's just like little things like that I think just make him a great pick. I love it.
I didn't look at any of that. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for adding that wonderful color to my analysis. I was just going to say that I think he scores some really unorthodox goals, and he's good fun to watch. And
even better,
you know, we like to root for the players that we have. We like to tune in and watch them, and we get our hopes up whenever they get near the ball, particularly when an MLS attacker gets on the ball in the final third. Literally anything can happen. And he scores all sorts of very strange and unorthodox goals and strikes from different angles. He looks constantly like he's slightly off balance, but it doesn't really seem to affect him. And his penalties are varied and masterful. They're really, really good. So yeah, I was looking at, like, I've got a Reynoso, I've got a Fagundes, I've got these attackers. I'm watching all of their graphs rise. And this guy is just not moving. And I was just a bit confused by it. I'm not looking to sell him. I don't care, but it's worth pointing out to others.
I think they're like a forgotten team, though, a little bit, San Jose. Like, there's so many teams in the MLS. Like, you kind of forget that, like, these teams still score goals. You know what I'm saying? They still have players who get decisive. Do you know what I'm saying? There's so many of this type of player. It's hard for them all to rise, if that in a weird way, because everyone's just going to look at Carlos Hill and, you know what I'm saying, like all the main sort of guys that you'll really know about, like name wise. But then you've got these undercover ones that equally can on their day can do a job. You know.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation for sure. I wonder. It's kind of weird that the rise came, at least in limited, like right at the beginning of January. And you would think, like, I don't see any reason for it to drop. Like we said, like nothing's happened. And so
the MLS America rise has happened later than the year before. Probably World Cup lag. I think last end of November, early December, last time around, already MLS was like, well, you're paying premium prices. We're only just getting to that point now. We're starting that trajectory. So we've all had a little bit of time to get on board with a few assets a little bit earlier. I've certainly taken advantage of that, but I think there's still time on this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now we can go to Harry.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Okay, so my second player, again, like I said, leading on from the transfer of Evian, we're going with Anwar El Hajj, who's just recently moved to Genk in the same league. It's A-N-O, I think, O-U.
Anwar?
O-U. Oh, El Hajj, yeah, do it that way. There it is. Anwar. Look at me giving you spelling lessons.
Seriously?
I've come a long way, boys. Yeah, just recently moved to Genk from Anderlecht. It's like a weird time for him, I think, in this last sort of 4 years. He's still only 20 years old. Under 23 until 2026. He feels like he's been around for absolutely years, which he kind of has. I'm looking back to his graph. He had games on game week 90, which is not like crazy early, I guess, but early enough, you know, below 3 digits. Just a really talented sort of attacking midfielder, you know, in the same sort of breath as like Yari Vasharan. But for whatever reason, Yari's kind of just been favoured over the last couple of years in terms of playing time, and he's been involved with the Belgium national team and stuff, like first team. So I don't know, they've come through at the same time, but El Hadj, for whatever reason, just hasn't really had the same sort of impact on this Anderlecht team, or been allowed to have the same amount of impact. But equally, people would say that, arguably he's a better player if you watch him play in that sense, and what he can do technically. But like I said, just move to Genk. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's going to walk into this Genk team. This Genk team's first in the league. They won last night again, 3-2. Like they're just grinding results, and I think it looks like they're going to probably win the league in terms of how consistent they're being with results. But that means it's going to be tough to get into this side, right? They've got a lot of attacking midfielders in that Genk team. Trezor, Pinksel's a winger, but depending on where El Hadj sort of finds his feet, I don't look and go, wow, he's going to walk into this team. But I do think he's going to have more playing time, right? Which is just better than being at Anderlecht rotting on the bench, like we said with the Evian situation, right? So, I'm not saying there's immediate utility in there, but I do think there is way more utility than there's going to be, or there would have been going forward at Anderlecht. And it's a fresh start. Sometimes you just need to get out of an environment. Like, at a young player, like, for whatever reasons, politically, things off the field seem to just sometimes stop you from playing football for whatever reason. Agents get involved, and, it's a whole situation, right? Fresh start at Genk, same league, And I just think it could be a good opportunity for him to really kickstart his career. Basically, he's 20 years old. Like, it's crazy to think that these kids are like playing first team football from like 16, 17, or getting a taste of it, and because then we know them, we think, oh, they're going to be around forever, which they are, but they're just not consistently playing in those ages, which makes sense. They're young, they're inexperienced, and don't deserve really, for the most part, to be playing every game, right? But this could be a chance for him to really, like I said, kickstart his footballing career.
It does feel a little weird to think he's going to play more at a better team. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It does in terms of the players. Is in like, you think, well, Anderlecht aren't as good as Genk. Why should this player have more time at a better? Yeah. But then I think, like I mentioned, I think things off the field, I don't know the whole story with this one, but I know there's situations in football clubs where you're just prevented from playing sometimes, right? Sure. As a young player. Yeah. And I just think, rather than it being like, I don't think it's anything on his ability, if that makes sense, because he's been trusted in the past. I think it's things off the field that have kind of, restricted him in that sense. And that's kind of my argument, to be like, well, okay, I know he's playing for a better club in terms of league position and stuff. And I just feel like he's going to have more of a chance, because they have a number 10 at Genk. Is it Al Cahoons or Cahoons? I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's young himself. Doesn't really have too much effect, like SO5 wise, if you have a look. Yeah, that's it. The BL Canus. 18, a little bit younger, but he's been trusted a lot of the time. I know we can't, watching somebody in real life and looking at their SO5 scores isn't always a great representation. He's obviously a talented kid to be playing, almost week in, week out for Genk. But, at least I'm not saying Anderlecht don't give opportunities, but what I'm saying is there's opportunities for young players to play football at Genk. Yep. El Hadj is a new signing going in there. It's a fresh start for him, where Anderlecht, I think, for whatever reason, he's just held back. And I think that there could be an opportunity here for him to really kickstart things.
I think just on the surface, if you are a young player, if you're a Sorare manager looking at cards of like younger players like this, you probably want one that's at Genk and not Anderlecht. Like, just the way that Genk play,
100%.
The attack is so much better that, like, when he does play, when he does play, he's in a situation where they're like goals to be had, not necessarily he'll get them immediately, but like just being in a team that scores more is a positive. And so, if there's like a path to minutes, this could be really good for sure. Did he just move like today?
He moved like 4 hours ago.
4 hours ago, yeah.
I just Googled it.
It's been rumored for a few days, to be fair. Like, it's not just out of the blue, but yeah, you're right. It did get announced today.
Yeah, it's very, very, very recent.
Yeah. And I mean, there's still, like you said, like 2026. It's a long time if you're willing to.
It's a long time
to wait. And it's not, it's not an outrageous price, even if it's just waiting until the next season.
Next season or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, really, like, I mean, on the day of an announcement like this is when usually you get a little spike, and I can see a little cluster of cards. If he doesn't walk his way into this team in the next couple of, oh yeah, a real little cluster there. They're all Harry. If he doesn't walk his way into this team in the next 3 weeks, that price will probably drop down again because people do get impatient. But if you believe in his talent level and you believe that there's a better path for a young player at Genk, then at the start of March, pick up one of these, and then next season you might be laughing. That's probably how I would view this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't follow Genk all that much, but like, is there a chance that like Trezor leaves, or
there's been rumors,
really any of them could leave, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, there is. There's definitely paths to games. I think. I don't think he would have moved. I know, like, you probably want to get, like, I don't know internally what happened there, but there was clearly a need for him to move. I imagine he had multiple offers. I know it makes sense when you go to the best team in the league on paper. Why wouldn't you? And win the league? You know what I'm saying? Like, from a selfish point of view, but I'm sure he's not guaranteed minutes. But there's no way he's going there to where, like, they're going to say, you're just going to rot for another 3 years. Like, I know no one says that signing, but I'd like to think there'd be some sort of guarantees in some form.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's right.
We'll see.
Yeah. As we see, four rare cards went today, because people love to jump on it. And what is that? These limiteds are all today. Yeah. Prince 7900 sweeping the floor a few minutes ago.
Okay. So. Yeah.
Not bad.
Must have hacked into our
That's right. Yeah. Somehow got the list before we even made it ourselves. Yeah. All right. Sam, why don't you finish us off?
I will. I'll be more than happy to. Okay. Let's finish off with Dennis Apaya, who I threatened to cover last week. Not in a violent kind of way. I just talked about him a little bit, and now it's time to take a look. And this takes my personal journey on this particular show from MLS to Ligue 2, which I believe is the best coupling of leagues that I have presented so far in your presence. I'm really pleased with this one.
It's impressive.
I mentioned Apaya last week in passing because he'd moved to Saint Etienne. He debuted and he'd scored 64. And Harry we were already talking about a different Saint Etienne player, I think. I was extremely tempted to get on board after the first result, the first score. I did not do it. He then follows the 64 up with a 70. Is that a 70? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. With an AA score of almost 35. It's absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful.
From a right back.
Yeah, from a right back. And if this is what he does, then even the slightly hiked up price from last week to this week is still too cheap. The rare is like £50. The limited, I got one earlier at £5. I should have got one last week at £3. And I think there's a balanced argument here for Apaya, and I'll just try and drop into both sides of it for parity. Laird, you mentioned it immediately. He's a right back. He's playing from right. He's actually very versatile, but he's playing from right back. We expect a bit of volatility from fullbacks on Sorare. So I'm not thinking that this is 64s all the way through. I'm not that naive, and no one should be. They're both also based on clean sheet victories. So he gets a +10 for the clean sheet. If he doesn't get that and he concedes, he gets a -4 on the swing for the defender. So we're talking about a 14-point swing for a defender. You have to be aware of that when looking at these scores. This is just the way the scoring matrix works. And the wins that they've put together are against Niort and Laval, who are both absolutely dreadful. They're right down there with Saint Etienne. So there's some reasons to take this with a pinch of salt. But conversely, you gotta mash these things together in your head. Yeah. But Apaya has just dropped down from Liga with Nantes to Ligue 2. So it is pretty natural that a player of that caliber would be a strong performer at this level. Saint Etienne are gaining confidence. They have had an awful year. It's been terrible, terrible, terrible across 2022. But there is a kind of feeling that they're starting to put the pieces in place now. They're starting to get a little bit of rhythm. And I dropped in and spoke to Jeremy Magan of Sorare TV to check his thoughts on this, because we'd been talking about Apaya. He thinks there's a really good feeling around Saint Etienne right now. They've got a new goalkeeper in. They've got a Pire in. They've brought in Charbonnier up front, who scored in the last game. Harry, your favourite, Moefek is fit. The team is clicking. Like, there's a lot of reasons to believe that Saint Etienne are finally turning that corner. And so there's a lot of reasons to believe that their assets are suddenly going to be a little bit more valuable. And that's kind of the essence of this show, isn't it? Like, this is it. You're trying to pinpoint those moments and get ahead of them. And I think for Saint Etienne, who are, down there at the bottom of Ligue 1 after being relegated, and it was threatened that they'd be relegated to 2 divisions at once because of the breaches that they'd made. Right. They're sort of finally finding their feet, thanks to a pretty strong January. So maybe it's not 64s and 70s every week, but all of a sudden, this looks like it's in play. And I've gone on board at £5 for a limited. Like, I don't see a downside. One last thing to add before Laird gets in there first. L15 at 33. Delicious. I could see it. I could see the words formulating. L15, delicious. Get this one in, if it's only for 1 or 2 weeks on cap mode, and then move on.
I had nothing else to say. Yes, that's all I was going to do. It's proof of like how broken it's gotten that I saw that L15 of 33 and I was like, here we go. We got quality here.
I saw your grin.
I mean, in fairness, there are plenty of people already who just look at the difference between L15 and L5, players who are in form that have come off struggles, and like this is the exact situation. But it's actually a very firm 33, meaning like it's not like he had he had 1 appearance in his last 15. It was the 15th ago, and it's going to change to something significantly higher. But like, this is exactly what you want to look for these cap mode situations, because, and again, you mentioned it, they lose the clean sheet, the 64 becomes a 50, the 70 becomes a 56, but that's still a lot higher than 33. And so like he's getting that in AA, like the 33 that is. And so, yeah, it's the absolute perfect player for that game mode. And it's going to take a while for these like low 30s, low 40 or mid 30s, low 40 scores. Not to mention the 3 is a gift here from an L15 perspective. And the 6 is, this is great. This is the kind of player that should be popping up on anyone who's doing like legitimate cap mode research should have this player on their list.
Oh my God, it's so funny. You're so excited about a 3.
I saw the 6 and I was like, this is, and then I'm like, a 3. How did he even get it?
It will take,
look at that, from a negative 32 AA.
Oh, what a player.
Wow. What a player.
I mean, look, it is going to take him a while to iron that through. If he was at Ligue 1 level, you wouldn't be touching this one. But yeah, dropping down. I mean, Jesus. Have you ever seen? I don't think I've ever seen an AA like that.
That's large. I've not.
That's the worst score I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
I mean, and so obviously
6,
sometimes you get
6 was just an unlucky penalty conceded in 18 minutes, but.
Yeah, no, tough. Sometimes you get those games.
Yes.
I don't think I've seen bad scores, but that's because their decisive is down to 5.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I just saw there was different. Anyway, look,
it was like
somehow
fully earned.
That's all good. It's good news, and
it is. It's good that it happened.
Yeah.
Like that's like it's really good
before you bought him.
Right, before exactly.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen down there in the depths of Ligue 2. We think, we hope. Saint Etienne are moving forward. They've got a couple of different players here. 3 or 4 actually that are well worth a look. Harry, you covered one last week. Here's another. There's a left back as well, who I did briefly consider for because I run a second division, limited team. And there he is. Is it Patro? Yeah, I mean, I was looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, he's actually pretty damn good. Like, maybe I should have him in my team, because I run a Granada stack with a few other pieces. Like,
Really
okay,
good.
interesting. And with a Pyre, I'm gonna initially use him for the cat mode, and then I'm hoping that if he's consistent enough, he just graduates into someone I can use in second division Europe. If those scores are anything to go by, then they are. So there's it's a double edge for me.
Speaking of double, you could also just buy another one and play one in cat mode and one in second division.
That's very true. That's very true. Actually, I've done a couple of that. I've got a few Carlos Nevers for Granada. They've just start sweeping them up. Very useful actually. Having a double of a player is like, we don't talk about it very much, but it's incredibly handy.
I think it's only one that I've done, at least from the same scarcity. And I actually end up having both of them in training.
I actually have 2 rare Diego Demers. I bought them when I thought he was going to move, and I've had them for a year. So this can backfire.
But
just imagine the XP.
Oh, they've got some great XP though. Oh.
I've got 4 Jack de Vries just to add to the depressive state of not being able to play cards and buying 4 of them. It happens. It swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be cat mode content here on Sorare TV, but again, if Dennis Appiah doesn't show up in those conversations, I think we'll have to take those over because it just wouldn't be right. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us here on Sorare TV. If you could please like the video or share it actually with everyone you know, that would be really helpful. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. All of that stuff.
Every single person you know.
Everyone. Just every single one. Just walk around and show them the video. Surely they'll come back when you explain to them how exciting cat mode is, and then Dennis Appiah on top of that. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all of that stuff, and good luck with everything.